In this video, we're going to be doing some maintenance and changing out some fluids on my 2017 Tacoma. Coming up. So I do want to apologize. I have the cooler going in the background. It is still summertime in Phoenix as the recording of this video, and it is still hot even in my garage. So I kind of need that cooler. So I know it's been a minute. I really haven't done too much to my Tacoma in the last several months, maybe even a few years. We are finally doing some maintenance to it. We're going to change out some fluids on the differentials, the transfer case. While we're at it, we're going to go ahead and change out a couple quarts on the transmission, as well as grease my electric amp research running boards since I'm under there. Now, I do acknowledge that this maintenance is supposed to be done at 30,000 miles. I am currently at 50. I admit I've gone way over, almost double what you're supposed to. It was brought to my attention, I think last year, from a video that Chloe did, and I've been wanting to do it, but between time and funds, one or the other, I either had the time, didn't have the money, had the money, didn't have the time, I hadn't gotten around to it. Although in the last year, I haven't put too many miles on my truck because my job takes me away from home quite often, and most of the time I am being dropped off and picked up, and I'm not even driving my truck. So I also acknowledge that I should have been doing a lot of this sooner, since I do tow a fifth wheel camper with my 2017 Tacoma. I know, it's not a big fifth wheel. It's got a GVW of 6,700 pounds, empty, it's 4,500 pounds. And I wanna say it's around like 21 or 23 feet long. So it's not a big fifth wheel by any means, but I would say that it's on the high end for our Tacomas. With that all out of the way, here's some of the fluids that we're going to be using. I have this Valvoline 75W90. That's what I'm going to be using in the front and rear differentials. I got these flexible pouches that should make it a little bit easier to get the oil into the differentials without using some sort of a pump. Based off from Chloe's experience, she did suggest these, so that's what I'm going to try. For the transfer case, I am using this oil from Redline. It has a few specifications that are needed for things like synchros and stuff like that. It is GL4 rated. I found this on another YouTube video where he is doing a 30,000 mile service. He explains it a lot better than what I can. So I will leave his video linked in the description if you want to check that out. But this is the oil that I picked up for the transfer case. Now you could go with the 75 weight directly from Toyota. However, at the time that I was doing this, I want to say that that price was well north of $100 for 1 liter. Although that's all you need for the transfer case is 1 liter, or it's like 1.1 quarts. But definitely pricey, and this is an equivalent. In theory, you could use this in the transfer case, but I am not willing to roll the dice to save a few dollars. When you compare this to the Redline, it's not that much difference. I think this was like $22 a quart, and for 12 quarts, $10 a quart, buying it the way that I did. So again, I'm not willing to roll the dice to save $24. Transfer case costs a lot more than $24. I also have the transmission fluid. I use the stuff directly from Toyota because that's what I am comfortable with. This was like the price is right on here. It was $16.61 a quart directly from the dealership. And you're only changing out, I think, 3 to 4 quarts at a time. So this is not breaking the bank either. The lithium grease, that's for the steps and the motors, which is, I know, going to be unique to my situation, but I'll throw that in there just in case you're curious. I also picked up the seals for the transfer case, the differentials, directly from Toyota. There are plenty of links on Amazon, and I will include those if you are curious, but I opted to pick them up from Toyota just because some of the reviews were hit and miss. They would arrive bent and damaged. So if you are going to order them from Amazon, I do suggest ordering multiple sets so that you can hopefully at least have one usable set out of all of those. Just my suggestion. And in case you're curious, here's what I picked up from Toyota and how much it cost. It was about $33 of what I spent. I call it $34, and that is including 1 quart of the transmission fluid and the seals. I still had 3 quarts of transmission fluid, but I wanted to have 4 on hand just in case. I do have an aftermarket transmission cooler on my truck. I do have videos on the transmission cooler if you are curious, and there will be another one coming out after this. I did some tweaks and adjustments to see if we make it even better. So I know I've been rambling plenty long enough. I'm going to start with the rear differential. All I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the back end, but I'm going to keep the tires on the ground and planted. So if you are wondering why I have the vehicle jacked up with a jack but no jack stands, I'm not taking the tires off. We're still safe. So I'm starting at the rear because it's the easiest to get to. Everything else I have to take stuff apart and take stuff off. So I'm just going to start with the easiest. Maybe it would be better to go the other way to get the hard stuff done first and then finish with easy. I don't know. What do you guys think? Which would you prefer? We do need a 24mm socket for the fill plug and a 24mm socket for the drain plug. Start with loosening the fill plug first to make sure that you don't drain and then can't get oil back in. I'm going to give my bolts a little tappy tap with my hammer. I've also seen people use WD-40, although WD-40 is not really a penetrating oil, so I don't know how much that will actually help. If you want, you could use some penetrating catalyst, and that might help. If you're curious, I'll see if I can put a link to the penetrating catalyst that I am used to using in the description below. I don't think I have any on hand though. Now you are noticing, and it's probably unique to me, my exhaust is right here going behind the differential. I do have room to get the ratchet on here, but that is probably something that's unique to me. And I don't think I can get the back end any higher than it already is. Ow! Hit my head. I put on the ear protection because hammering stuff is not very much fun when you have tinnitus. And what do you think about my pink gloves? My wife buys them in bulk. She's a massage therapist and an esthetician, so her buying them in bulk and then just stocking me up on them works for me. I don't know how well you can see that, but it actually looks really good. It looks really new. Yeah, it's not black at all. The black is from the seal. All right, maybe it's, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of black on the bolt. That's it. Other than that, the oil looks really good. So I did clean it up. I used a little bit of acetone to clean up the oil and wiped off the gunk off from the magnet here. There's a little bit of black that came off from the magnet, but no big metal shavings. It was all very, very fine. And I almost screwed up right off the bat because I didn't get a new seal. All right, now let's try this again, and let's try to do this the right way with the crush washer actually installed. Part numbers for the crush washers, they're both going to get the same crush washer, and that part number is 121571010. We're going to clean up around the drain plug, make sure there's no mud or anything like that that's going to get in there. And this time I have the crush washer installed, and we're going to torque the drain plug to 36 foot-pounds. We are ready to go ahead and put the oil back in. One thing I did notice about these fill pouches, you have to take these caps off, pull a cover off, and then you have to cut them. So kind of tedious for each and every one. It does say that the rear differential varies in the amount of fluid that it holds. I am at 4 quarts currently, and I'm about to add a little bit more. It looks like it can go up to 4.2, so we should be just about there. We're just gonna try and go slow with this last one. Well, that took exactly 5 quarts. I'm sitting here second guessing myself, did I do something wrong? And the back tires are still firmly on the ground. That took exactly 5 quarts before it started coming out. And I can see it right in there. It's at the correct level. And now we will reinstall the fill plug, and we're going to torque that to the same 36 foot-pounds. So for the front differential, we do need to remove the skid plate, but I removed the wrong one. I got to remove this back one. This is the first time doing this, so I'm figuring it out as I go. Guess I could have looked before I took the other one off, but it's not going to hurt to have it out of the way. Now we can get to it. Again, before I try and get these out, especially with them being hex drive, I'm going to give them a little tappy tap. Hopefully that'll help. This does take a 10 millimeter hex, and just like for the back, we're going to loosen up the fill plug first. Oh, that was easy. I hope the bottom one's just as easy. Please? Oh yeah. That was... wow. Those took basically no pressure. This one's super clean. Alright, hopefully we're going to be able to catch it as it's coming out, just to make sure. See if maybe it's dirty compared to the back. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's definitely darker than the back. Now the drain plug gets the copper gasket. It is part number 90430-24017, and the fill plug gets the last crush washer, which is 12157-1000110. The drain plug is going to be torqued to 48 foot-pounds. And then it should take about 1.6 quarts of oil to fill this back up. The drain plug is going to get torqued to 28 foot-pounds. So just in case you're curious, this was the rear differential drain plug with the magnet. This was the front one. It's just like paste, but no shavings. And here's the seals. Now for the transfer case, I have tons of room to work underneath here. I'm gonna be using a 24 millimeter socket for both the fill and drain plugs. I don't know if it really needs a tappy tappy. We'll try it without it. And we do not. Actually, it appears that the transfer case was overfilled. All right, so neither one of these has a magnet on it like the differentials. I'm just pointing that out because I kind of thought it would, and I don't know any better. So these are both going to use part number 90430 Alpha 0003 gaskets. Then it gets torqued to 27 foot-pounds. Then it takes 1.1 quarts, or 1 liter, just enough to have to buy 2 bottles. Now the question is how am I going to get this in here without making a huge mess? There are pumps. I do have a pump, but I use it for transmission fluid, and I would rather not cross-contaminate. So I'm going to go figure this out. Okay, here's what I came up with. I drained as much of the residual oil from the bag as I could, and then filled it with the red line. I figured having a tiny bit of this mixed in there would be better than having any sort of transmission fluid mixed into it, or vice versa when I go to fill the transmission fluid of having gear oil in that. So criticize me if you want. I agree, because I should have 2 separate pumps, one for gear oil, one for transmission. That way I don't have to worry about any sort of cross-contamination. But here we are. This one also gets torqued to 27 foot-pounds. You're probably going to notice that this video is going to be a little bit out of order. I'm going to do the transmission next. At the end of the video, I will grease the running boards. That's just placement. I already got done doing that. And you'll see the fun of that. That's why it's dark out now that I am doing the transmission. So we have a cover. It's a catalytic converter cover that we have to remove in order to get to the transmission. So this is the cover I have to remove. I just have to remove the bottom piece, I believe, but these might, yeah, I think these actually come with it. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to separate it. It's been a while since I put it on there, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna have to remove it. This is not gonna be fun. All right, we're starting with the fill plug on the side of the transmission. It's a 24 millimeter bolt, or you can use 15/16. It's the same size. And we want to make sure we can get that loose so we can fill it back up. It was not difficult to remove. Next up, we want to check the level, which is a 5 millimeter hex. It's another one of those dreaded hexes. Trying to clean up the dirt, clean it up on the inside to make sure that this seats completely. All right. I don't think anything will come out, but you never know. I don't think that was right. That's obviously wrong because we want to drain it out of the drain. I don't think I screwed anything up, but again, I don't claim to know everything that I'm doing. I'm not an expert. Ah, you son of a... And yes, I know I can edit out the flubs, but then I wouldn't be being honest. All right, let's try this again. Let's go out the drain. I'm going into a pitcher so that we can measure it. All right, so I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see that. We have about 2.5 quarts of fluid in here. I'm gonna put 3 in, and this is the pump that I was talking about. Just a cheapy pump, nothing fancy, but again, I didn't want to have any sort of cross-contamination between transmission fluid and gear oil. Call me overly paranoid, but these are not inexpensive components. This is a very awkward position.
That's what she said!
So the gaskets for the fill and the check plug. The part number is going to be 31578 30010. I could not find a part number for the fill plug, but it is an O-ring, nothing special. Although on a thread, I think it was on Tacoma World or something like that, they were saying it's just an O-ring, not a heat tile on the space shuttle, which is funny because the reason that the Challenger space shuttle blew up was because of an O-ring. The Torx spec on both the drain plug and the check plug are both going to be 15 foot-pounds. That also translate into 20 Newton meters. I say that because my torque wrench here is in inch-pounds and Newton meters, not foot-pounds. And I'm torquing the drain plug because I don't anticipate draining anything else out, but I'm going to wait to torque the fill plug and obviously this one because we got to bring it up to temp. All right, so this is the thermostat for the transmission right here. There's a hole in the bottom and in the top for you to put something like a pin or a drill bit, but you got to push in this button in the end of it. Now, as you can see, I use one of these. I had to make the hole just ever so slightly bigger in order to fit this, but that's what I use. I could leave it in here if I wanted to. I've never driven with it like that. I haven't seen any issues not doing that. All right, so using my ultra gauge, I can see that the transpan temp is already at 90.5 degrees. Now I know that there is a way that you can check the transmission temperature without a sort of scan gauge, but I have the ultra gauge in here so I can check that. But like I said, we're already at 90 degrees, so this will not take long. If you do want to know how to do it without the scan gauge, probably going to need to watch somebody else's video. I'm not sure exactly how to do it, and they're going to be able to explain it better than I can. All right, we cycled through the gears to make sure that the transmission fluid is cycled through the transmission. All right, we're at temp, so I'm going to crawl underneath there real quick and drain off the excess. And I'm just going till there is a trickle. And this one also gets torqued to the same 15 foot-pounds or 20 Newton meters. All right, now all I have to do is clean it up, but we got probably half a quart out of there. Now, continuity-wise, I'm going to do this and film it before the transmission because I have to warm up the truck, but I'll insert this after doing the transmission. Does that make sense? But we're gonna grease these motors. This is the motor for the Amp Research electric steps. Well, that took me like, I don't know, an hour and a half. 2 screws hold this thing on, and they are hex bit, and one of them stripped out. I had to drill the stupid thing out. I couldn't use an extractor, ended up drilling the head off, getting this off, then I could get in there with another drill bit, drill it some more, get an extractor, and I finally got the other screw out. Now this is a weird shaped screw. It's got a tapered head. Luckily, in the abundance of screws that I have, I do have another screw. Now we got to open it up to get the grease inside. Luckily, these are Torx drive. I did try to see if I could just get this loose and try and grease it in place, and that was not happening. I do wish that there was like a Zerk fitting on here. That would make things a whole lot easier, but there is not. So now I'm gonna use the white lithium grease and I'm just gonna pack it in there. So that's what it looks like with all the grease in there. And the cover's back on. We're ready to reassemble it. That was fun. All right, I finally got it reassembled. I just hope this isn't a nightmare because it's not exactly in the same spot. I hope it resets. I know I didn't do a before, but wow, that is significantly quieter. It's getting pretty noisy. That is way quieter. I am not gonna lie, greasing those steps was a nightmare. 2 screws to get the motor off, 1 stripped on each side. Those hex head screws are terrible. I'd even take Phillips head at this point. Like, that was just awful. It took an extra 5 hours to deal with both sides. Not 5 hours each, but a total of 5 hours. Once I got to the other side, I'm like, oh, well, I got it figured out from the first side. If it strips, I'll just do the same thing. Yeah, it didn't work. That was a whole lot of frustration. I got it to work. It's not the prettiest, but I might as well show you what I did. And I kept trying to drill this out and it just wasn't going on the center post. I ended up cutting this stud off with a grinder, so I had a flat surface and a flat screw to drill into again. The drill bit actually started pushing the remnants of the screw in. Then once I put it in reverse, it pulled it right out. But then I would need a spacer to stand it off, and I just used a nut here. It'll probably be fine. I'll check it periodically to make sure that it's not vibrating loose, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. These studs are tapped, and this is aluminum. Even though the website says steel, that's definitely aluminum. They have studs on both sides as well as the rear. I even was considering trying to swap out the rear and put the back one up here and then tap it and thread it, but you can't get these apart. Like, these are not just pins that drive out. I mean, obviously they would vibrate loose. I don't know how they come out. I could not figure it out, so I couldn't swap them. I looked up to see how much a replacement arm would be, and it looked like they were about $300. And that is not something I really wanted to spend. The plastic covers are held on with plastic clips, like button clips. I replaced them with screws because there's a piece of metal that the screw will thread into, so that's a little bit better than those plastic ones. But yeah, that was a nightmare. Again, it's not about should we, it's can we. I guess we technically can, but it wasn't easy. One of the things that I forgot to record and forgot to mention, the fill plug on the transmission needs to be torqued to 29 foot-pounds. And I didn't really think that you wanted to see me put the skid plates back or the cat shield, so I just did that off camera. In total, I would say this entire project took me about 9 hours. And I know, go ahead and make fun of me in the comments below. That's pretty excessive, but keep in mind a couple of things. Messing with those running boards and wanting to grease the motor, I was committed. I had the motor off and I needed to get back on. Having those 2 screws strip out, 1 on each side, that added 5 hours to my project. Taking that off, we're down to about 4 hours. And I'm also recording during the process, so that adds a decent amount of time setting up the camera, trying to record things. And honestly, it would be a whole lot faster if I just wasn't recording it. And trust me, it would be easier. But I would say 4 hours is probably a better time to change the fluid in both differentials, the transfer case, and the transmission. One thing I want to mention about the transmission, the service says every 60,000 miles. They say it's lifetime fluid, but then they turn around and say every 60,000 miles. Okay, whatever. But since I tow the 5th wheel, I wanted to do it just a little bit more often. I did some changes to the transmission cooler and a little bit leaked out, so I just wanted to make sure that I still had adequate fluid in there, so I figured I'd do a swap at the same time. Now the interval for the gear oil is every 30,000 miles, but it does say if you're towing or carrying heavy gear like an overlander type setup, to do it more often, maybe every 20 or even 15,000 miles. And I believe that there's a place in the radio that we can set up an other maintenance in there. So we're gonna go under maintenance. You see I have my engine oil, oil filter, and rotation. And let's see what other things we got. So we got a personal, air filters, service, So we could possibly put it under service, but it just gives a date. Trans fluid, you do have a trans fluid one. And so that's all I'm seeing here. So let's check out personal. Let's say gear oil. Okay, and we're gonna say a distance, and we're gonna say 15,000 miles since I towed my trailer. We could probably do 20 as well. And now you see we have 15,000 miles. It doesn't say what it is right here. It still says personal, but it says gear oil up there. And you can see that we still have 2,600 miles remaining on our oil. Oil filter the same. And I do the tire rotation at the same time I do the oil change. Another thing that I forgot to mention yesterday was to check your fluids, your brake fluid, your power steering fluid, your coolant. Make sure that those are all topped off. But also, you can get these test strips, which I ordered off from that guy's video, to test your brake fluid to make sure that it's still good and doesn't need to be replaced. What I didn't realize until I received them is that they are double-sided or double-ended to test your brake fluid and your coolant to make sure that they are both still good. They're just test strips. You dip one end into the coolant and the other end into the brake fluid. They're really easy to use. They're color-coded, comes with a couple of cards in here. Really easy to use. I will leave a link in the description below. That guy also has them linked in his video, so find them in both. All my levels are good. My brake fluid checks good, and my coolant also checks good using these test strips. And actually, I can't tell you how emotional it actually got me doing this. I didn't even think about it, didn't expect it, but the second that I cracked the rear differential and smelled the gear oil, it hit me like a ton of bricks. If you don't know, my dad was a mechanic, and I did lose him a few years ago. This was actually his toolbox setup, at least some of it. And I have it because I inherited it from him. Even coming and getting tools out of it can get me emotional, but really smelling that gear oil really hit me hard. Didn't expect it to. There are actually several tools that I used today that were his, including both torque wrenches, like the 10mm hex drive, that was his, and I have it because of him. So yeah, and I was really close to my dad, so, and even though it's been a few years, I disagree with what they say. It does not get easier with time. Now, I fully acknowledge that my video is probably not as good as many others out there. I will leave a link in the description to that other video. His is pretty good, although he doesn't talk anything about the transmission fluid change. And I was having trouble finding any videos that went more in depth. They kind of tell you how to do it. Some of them give you torque specs, although there are a bunch of them giving you different torque specs on different videos. And they don't tell you what temperature to bring the transmission up to. They only show you how to do it without a scan tool. But what about those of us that do have a way to tell the temperature of the transmission? Couldn't find a temperature. I did some Googling and it said anywhere from like 95 to 115 in that window. So I went for 100 degrees. And you definitely saw me goof up in a few areas. I could edit those out, but I want to be fully transparent and I'm going to leave all of that in there. I do not claim to be an expert. I know just enough to get myself into trouble. So if you're new here, maybe this is your first time here, I'm a bit of a do-it-yourselfer. Try to have the underlying theme of DIY, but at the end of the day, it's whatever I feel like uploading. And if you like that kind of thing, please subscribe, give this video a like. It does help just a little bit, and it doesn't cost you a thing. But we're gonna wrap it up right here. That's it for this video. We'll catch you on the next project. See ya.